Hi there, this is Raja from Cloud Foundry Dev Relations team for Node.js. Recently, we announced support for auto-reconfiguration for Node.js application, and today I'm going to talk about how this feature works and how to use it. Okay, let's first understand what's auto-reconfiguration. Auto-reconfiguration is a feature that allows developers to push their code that's running on their local host to Cloud Foundry without making any Cloud Foundry-specific configuration changes. So the main idea is to help simplify your development and help avoid vendor lock-in because you are limiting the changes you're making to your code in order to push to Cloud Foundry. And also note that this is a built-in hidden feature, which means you will be using it without your knowledge. And auto reconfiguration is supported for number one, apps, host, and port, and also apps services like MongoDB, Redis, MySQL, etc. Okay, let's take an example of how it used to work until now without auto reconfiguration. On this slide, you see on the left hand side is a simple Hello World app. Here you can see it is running on localhost with port 3000. And now to run the same app on Cloud Foundry, you had to basically change these host and port numbers because Cloud Foundry assigns the port and host name for your application when you upload it to Cloud Foundry. And Cloud Foundry assigns these information to environment variables which can be accessed by your application via process.env variable. So for example, you can get port information by saying process.env.vcap underscore app underscore port. But as you can see, you had to make this change to your code base in order to run it on Cloud Foundry. Okay, let's take a look at how it would change with this new auto reconfiguration feature. Again, on the left hand side, you're seeing the code for localhost. And on the right hand side is the exact same code that would run on Cloud Foundry. So that's the beauty of auto reconfiguration. As you can see, you didn't have to worry about any of the environment variables and it would just work. That's mainly because behind the scenes, Cloud Foundry will automatically configure the host and port information for you. Okay, let me do a quick demo. Okay, here is my Hello World app. I'm going to now directly push it to Cloud Foundry without changing the host or port. Okay, it's up there now. Okay, there you go. The biggest advantage of auto reconfiguration feature is not just the host and port auto reconfiguration, but its ability to reconfigure services. Services like MongoDB, MySQL, RabbitMQ, Redis, etc. Okay, let's imagine that you have a Node.js application that is connecting to MongoDB. Now, in order to make this application run both on your local host and also on Cloud Foundry, you need to kind of call a function or create a function or use some library that basically does all the logic that you see over here. So this function, checks if the process.env.vcap underscore services variable exists. If it does, then it will start reading the environment variable information from Cloud Foundry, and then it will create a MongoDB connection URL. And depending on where you are running, this function will return slightly different URLs for you to connect to the MongoDB. Now let's see how it looks with auto reconfiguration. That's it. So you don't really need to make any changes at all. You can still keep your MongoDB connection URL for localhost. And behind the scenes, when you upload your app, our Cloud Foundry will take care of creating the right connection URL. Okay, let me do a quick demo. Right, so here is the code that was before auto reconfiguration feature. So I'm going to remove everything that is not required. And this was the function that was basically returning all the information, and here is where I'm using it. So I'm going to completely get rid of it. And then here I'm going to just say let me try to push this thing. Okay, here is asking me, do you want to bind to anything? Say yes. Bind to MongoDB. Okay, so everything seems to be fine. That's it. So this particular application simply logs any HTTP request that comes along. Now that's the power of auto-reconfiguration. You have a code that runs on localhost, and now you could push it to Cloud Foundry without making any changes, not even change to connect to services like MongoDB. Now, this particular feature is not supported for everything except for the following 6 services that Cloud Foundry supports by default. Among them, AMQP module, which is for RabbitMQ, MongoDB, Mongoose, both are for MongoDB service, MySQL and PG and Redis, these are for MySQL, Postgres, and Redis respectively. And along with that, any modules that you might see in search.npmjs.org that are built on top of these default modules are also supported. Let's take a quick look at how it works behind the scenes. When you upload your app, just before the app is run, Cloud Foundry automatically adds a module called CF Auto-Config. And it also searches for common modules like MongoDB, Redis, and all the things that I mentioned earlier. And once it finds them, it manipulates its connection code to essentially use Cloud Foundry-specific information. The code looks something like this for MongoDB. And once it is done, it actually runs your Cloud Foundry app. And when your application starts and it wants to connect, because it has already manipulated the connection libraries, so now your application will automatically work without having to worry about all those configuration details. Let's take a look at some of the limitations. Firstly, it assumes that you are only using one service of a given type. For example, your app only uses one MongoDB service and not multiple MongoDB services. And it only supports modules that I described earlier. And your application does not use CF runtime or CF auto-config node modules directly, because this is all actually provided by Cloud Foundry when you upload your code. And lastly, it is supported for most typical Node.js applications. Now, for whatever reason, if you don't want to use auto-reconfig feature, simply create a file called cloudfoundry.json in your app's root folder, and then add CF auto-config property with a value of false, and Cloud Foundry will ignore this feature. And that's about it. This is Node.js auto-reconfiguration feature. This is Raja Rao, and thanks for watching, and I hope you find this feature useful.